This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome. You are here in the lab room, lockdown coverage. Your man Louie Tee is covering the entire National Football League like a blanket. Week number 2 in the National Football League. Los Angeles Rams home opener. Welcome back to Cali. Taking on the Seattle Seahawks, a team that they owned last season, sweeping the Seattle Seahawks, and have been a thorn in their side since Russell Wilson has entered this league. So this was a big matchup. Seahawks were able to get it done last week versus the Miami Dolphins 10-12, but it was not pretty. And Russell Wilson sustained an ankle injury in that ball game, so that was going to limit his mobility. Was he going to be able to run away from a very athletic defense that always seems to give him fits when he's 100% healthy in this ball game and help the Seahawks score enough points against a very stingy Rams defense? Meanwhile, for the Rams, they didn't score a single point in the opening ball game versus the San Francisco 49ers in an embarrassing loss, 28-0. Could they rebound off of that loss? Remember, Jeff Fisher said 7-9 wasn't going to be good enough. 8-8 wasn't going to be good enough. 9-7 wasn't going to be good enough. After week 1, everyone was saying you'd be lucky to get any of those 3 records this season. So how are they going to respond at home for the first time this season? Let's jump into this breakdown. But before we do, welcome to all of you who are new to the channel. Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. Continue to break down the entire National Football League here on lockdown coverage each and every single week. You can come here, find your man Louie Tee breaking down every single game from that week's slate. So if you're on Twitter, I'm on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. Be sure to use the hashtag LouieTeeLive on Twitter. And if you happen to be in the discussion box on the YouTube live feed, be sure to use the hashtag LouieTeeLive there if you want your comment read at the end of the program. And I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Go ahead, thumbs up, like the page to keep you in the loop on what's going on the Louie Tee Network. That being said, let's jump into this breakdown. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe for both teams in this ball game. We start with the likes, and as always, we start with the likes of the road team. So I'm going to jump into the Seattle Seahawks and their likes in the first half of this football game. And it's not many. When the score is 9-3, there's not going to be many likes. There's not going to be a lot to chew on in this football game. But I will do my best to give you my thoughts on this football game. My likes for the first half for the Seattle Seahawks: Tyler Lockett. And really, it's the same 2 likes in both halves for the Seattle Seahawks. First half, second half, it's the same likes. To me, the defense was dominant in this football game. And I say this all the time when you get a low-scoring game. When you give up 9 points, you're supposed to win every time in this league. All right? 9 points is supposed to get you a W every time. Not some of the time, not most of the time. Every time you're supposed to win. When you give up 9 points, somehow, some way, 9 points wasn't good enough in this game, and that is utterly ridiculous if you're the Seattle Seahawks. The offense was just abysmal in this game in terms of protecting Russell Wilson. They knew he was not going to be mobile in this game, and because of that, they needed to be a lot stouter up front, and they just weren't. And so Tyler Lockett is on my likes list. He made 2 big plays, one in the first half to set up their their only scoring possession in this game, and one late in the ball game to give them life, to give them an opportunity to potentially steal this game away from the Rams at the very end. Tyler Lockett, 4 catches, 99 yards. He was the real deal in this game. and he was called for a pass interference. Could have been over 100 had he not been called for that PI. We'll talk about all the pass interference penalties and all of the different penalties that were called on the Seahawks in this game that attributed to them losing this ball game a little bit later on. But those were my likes for the Seahawks in the first half. Go to the first half likes for the Rams in this game. Nice opening drive. You would have liked to have seen them get on the scoreboard with a touchdown to open up, christen the new stadium, come out, get a touchdown, get everybody excited. They settled for a field goal, and it still was points nonetheless, and no one knew at the time that 9 would be enough. Hell, 6 would be enough to win you this ball game. Nobody knew at the time, but just getting a field goal, getting on the board early. You didn't score at all last week, so just changing that goose egg to a 3 early in this ball game meant a lot for this Rams team and their confidence early in this ball game. Good red zone stop by forcing a field goal after Tyler Lockett makes the big catch, gives them some great field position. They get all the way down there inside the 10-yard line. Then the Seahawks have some penalties that drive them back, and the Rams were able to hold the fort down and force a field goal, a big force of a field goal by that Rams defense, because, again, we didn't know this at the time, but had they given up a touchdown there, that would have loomed large. They're having trouble scoring, and that's an understatement right now, are the Rams. But to hold them to a field goal, it gave them the best opportunity that they were going to have to win this football game, and that they did. Big play to Lance Kendricks, which led to a field goal in this game in the first half. Lance Kendricks, to me, was a standout in this ball game, and he looks a lot different to me. He looks more of a threat in the passing game than he ever has throughout his career. And I know when he first came into the league, Lance Kendricks was a guy that could make some plays in the passing game, but I didn't feel like he was that big of a threat. Right now, he looks to be in the best shape that he's been in his entire career. He looks like a legit pass-catching threat. We knew he could block, but now he looks like a dual-threat tight end and a guy that can stretch the football field. And I thought he was dynamic in this football game, made some plays, and you could argue was the difference for the Rams in this football game in terms of getting on the scoreboard. He made some big plays in this game. Kenny Britt did as well. He contributed some huge catches in this game. Don't want to sell him short, but Lance Kendricks made some big plays, and his catch directly attributed to the Rams getting a field goal in this football game. Let's go to the first half dislikes for both teams. Pass interference penalty on Tyler Lockett was one of the dislikes in the first half. They just couldn't afford to have those types of penalties on the offensive side of football. They just weren't moving the football well enough. Speaking of which, my other dislike, the offense in the first half. They just simply failed to move the football enough for me. They didn't sustain drives. Too many penalties in this game as a whole. The offense was affected by the lack of mobility by Russell Wilson. And I talked about the offensive line needing to be better up front in front of him. Because of that, the running game needed to be a better supporting cast member because of the lack of mobility of Russell Wilson in this game. And neither one of them stood up to the challenge. I think the running game with Christine Michael, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, was a little bit better than the actual overall play of the offensive line in the pass protection game. But that being said, they always struggle to block the Rams when they play the Rams. And Russell Wilson always struggles with this Rams defense, so I didn't know why this would be any different. I just thought they would be able to score enough points. That was my train of thought going into this game, is that they're still going to struggle, and with Russell Wilson being on one leg, essentially, they're going to struggle in this game. But my thought process was they're still going to score more points than the Rams, who are offensively challenged right now. They're offensively deficient. And so just because I knew they couldn't score a bunch of points, I said, Seattle may not score a bunch themselves, but they'll score enough to win. At least that's what I thought. But I was wrong. They could not muster enough points in this game to win. And a lot of that was because of the lack of offense in this football game. Let's go to the Rams and their first half dislikes. Kenny Britt with a third down drop. In a game where you only score 9 points and you find it hard to sustain offense, can't have drops that would create a new set of downs for you with a first down. You can't have it. On third down, you must catch the football. And Kenny Britt had an otherwise great football game, but that was a huge drop on a third down. Again, you got to sustain drives. You got to give yourself a chance to make some plays, especially when you've been struggling to start this season scoring points. You can't have the drops on third down. Kenny Britt knows better. And after that play, you could see he was visibly upset at himself for dropping that third down pass. Let's go to the second half likes for both teams. The defense and Tyler Lockett. I said that they were the constants in this game, and they were the only lights for me in this game. The defense, again, you give up 9 points. It's hard to convince me that you shouldn't win the football game. And Tyler Lockett, like I said, big catch in the first half that led to a field goal. Big catch in the second half that almost gave them an opportunity to win this football game. So Tyler Lockett, for me, was a standout for them offensively. You could throw Christine Michael in there if you like, but I don't trust guys with 2 first names, and he fumbled the football at the very end of this game, costing them an opportunity. So, again, I tried to explain to you, you can never trust a guy with 2 first names. Christine Michael hammered that point home yet again in this football game. Troy Hill makes a game-saving tackle on Tyler Lockett and also injures himself on that same exact play. But if he doesn't make that tackle on Tyler Lockett, he is gone, and they lose this football game most likely 9-10. So that was a hell of a tackle, even though he gave up the big ball to Lockett. To make that tackle, to save the day, the big play by Troy Hill on that particular play. Second half likes for the Rams in this game. Big play to Kenny Britt down the sidelines, put them in a position to try to get some more points. And that was the story of the Los Angeles Rams in this game, is the ability to hit big plays to set up field goal opportunities. Without some big plays in this game, they don't get on the scoreboard because they failed to sustain offense. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the big plays down the field is what set them up to score in this game. You had the big play to Lance Kendrick that I talked about earlier. You had the big play to Kenny Britt. They had big plays that set them up. And then you had a beautiful opening drive, which was about the only drive that they really sustained on this afternoon. Young Jeezy 3 for 3. I like that. Okay. In a game where you win 9-3 and all of your points come via field goals, you need your kicker to be 3 of 3, and that he was in this football game. Good to see him knocking the football through the uprights and giving this Rams team a chance to win. And the defense, again, I talked about this defense already. You hold a team to 3 points, you better win the football game, okay? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you can't find a way to beat a team when you hold them to 3 points, then you don't deserve to put a team on the field, period, okay? They found a way to get it done. This defense, they just know how to play the Seattle Seahawks. They may not win another game all season long other than when they play Seattle. I mean, they just know how to play the Seahawks. And, of course, that's a overstatement. That's how hyperbole. They're going to win more games this season, but they just know how to play. This is that type of family business that is just hard to explain. Other than they're uber athletic, Russell Wilson thrives off of being able to extend plays, and they don't allow him to do that. Other than that, it's hard to understand why they find a way to win against Seattle when most teams find it tough to do so. They find a way to get it done, and that's what family business is all about. These Rams know how to get it done versus the Seahawks. They did it yet again, and it was the defense that was the catalyst yet again in the victory over the Seattle Seahawks. That forced fumble of Christine Michael at the end of this ball game was huge, and it was the clincher for this Rams football team as they win the football game 9-3. Let's get to the dislikes in the second half for both teams, starting with the Seattle Seahawks. Bunch of them. Pressure on Russell Wilson was a big one for me in this game. They knew they had to protect him coming into this game, and I thought they failed to do so adequately. Now, he wasn't sacked a bunch of times in this game, but he was pressured. He couldn't get away because of the ankle, and because of that, I thought he was errant on some throws. I thought that they rushed the offense because of that, and I thought they needed to do a better job up front, and I didn't think they necessarily did that in front of him. The 8 penalties in this game on the Seahawks were costly. There's some big ones in here. Cam Chancellor with the pass interference penalty. That was a big one. Jermaine Kearse on a drive where they looked like they were starting to gain a little bit of momentum. Pass interference. Pete Carroll went nuts. Knocked the headset off. Was dragging it all on the ground. Going bananas on the sidelines. That was a huge penalty. You had the face mask penalty on Cassius Marsh late in the ball game that extended a drive that was going to result in a punt that would have gave the Seahawks more time to execute late in the game. Instead, it gave them a first down, forced the Seahawks to waste the rest of their timeouts, and really put them in a bind trying to come back late in this ball game. They had a bunch of penalties in this game that were costly. In a game when it's 9-3, of course, every penalty is a costly one. Seahawks had a bunch of them. Doug Baldwin left this game with an ankle injury. He seems to be fine. The MRIs seem to indicate that he'll be okay, and that's what he's telling everybody, so that's good to hear. Fumble by Kristen Michael is a huge dislike in this game. They had a shot late, okay? And I don't know if they were going to actually score the touchdown that they needed to win this game, but that fumble put all of that to rest and gave the Rams this W. Hold on to the football, especially in a crucial situation at the end. He did not do that. Go to the Rams and their dislikes in the second half of this football game. Third down conversions. Remember I talked about the lack of sustaining drives. They were horrible last week versus the 49ers on third downs. That's why they didn't score any points. They were horrible again in this game on third downs. That's why they only scored 9 points. They hit the big play, and I talked about that leading to them getting in the end zone. They had one really good drive, and that was the opening drive of the game, and they still had to settle for a field goal, but at least they converted on third down on that drive. They really struggled on third downs in this game. And again, if you're going to continue to struggle on third downs, you're not going to win many games scoring 9 points. I can assure you of that. Not many teams right now are sitting at 1-1 on the season, not having scored a touchdown on the season, only having scored 9 points in 2 combined games. This is a recipe for disaster. They have to be better on third downs, or else they're going to suffer the same fate they did in this game and the game before it, not scoring any touchdowns. Getting Todd Gurley in space is my next dislike and my final dislike in this football game. They got to find a way to get him going. The offensive line isn't run blocking well enough to get him out into space, so you need to scheme up ways. How about sending Tavon Austin in ghost motion to attract the defense, get their eyes moving, and then send him in the opposite direction? How about you get him out in the flats on a screen? How about you split him out and you run him on a jet sweep? Do something to get Todd Gurley going out in space. He hasn't been able to get out in space, and it's causing him to struggle. And when he struggles, this offense struggles. Remember, he was this offense last year. This was the Todd Gurley show last season. They struggled when he wasn't able to get it going on the ground, and they've struggled this year because he hasn't been able to get it going on the ground. They need to create space for Todd Gurley. I didn't feel like they did that last game versus the 49ers. I didn't feel like they did that adequately enough in this game versus the Seattle Seahawks. They need to do a better job of creating space for Todd Gurley to give him some room to navigate. Let's get to the banana in the tailpipe. For the Seahawks, it's simple for me. You got to score more points. And I'm not convinced that they're not going to get their act together, but this is 2 weeks in a row, all right, that you weren't able to put up substantial amounts of points. 12 points last week in a victory, and you needed a last-second touchdown to achieve that. And 3 points this week in a loss on the road versus the Rams. You got to get your act together. I expect them to, but right now I'm starting to doubt whether this is actually a banana in the tailpipe, or do these guys just have an issue scoring the football? Because now, 1 week, okay, it's a little bit of a fluke. 2 weeks, it's becoming a trend. If they do this again, if they struggle to score again next week, and we're looking at the scoreboard, and maybe they win the game 12-10 again, maybe they come away with a 13-9 victory, whatever the case may be. If they find it tough to score again in week 3, I'm going to start really doubting this Seattle Seahawks offense. And this is not going to be a banana in the tailpipe. This is going to be a real issue for them. But until then, this is a banana in the tailpipe. I expect them to be able to score more points. I don't know what the problem is. I can't really pinpoint why they can't get the football in the end zone yet this season. But it is an issue. But I'm going to take a cautious wait-and-see approach and say that this is a banana in the tailpipe, and they will get this problem rectified. For the Rams, you could argue it's the same thing, scoring points, but I know what that problem is, okay? My question and my banana in the tailpipe isn't offensive related because they got Case Keenum at quarterback, and I'm not going to keep singing that same song. You know how I feel about Case Keenum starting in this league. You're not going to score many points. You're not going to win many games. What I will say is that this defense was lights out in this game, and they were terrible the week before. So who are you? I don't know. And I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe that this Rams defense is legit. Again, all of a sudden, just because they stopped the Seattle Seahawks, who, oh, by the way, struggled to score last week versus Miami. I need to see more. I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe that this defense is all of a sudden fixed. And all of a sudden now they're going to just start shutting teams down. They know how to play Seattle. They did it again. They were at home. They fed off the adrenaline and the crowd's energy. Can they continue to play good defense moving forward? We will see. But I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Let's see what you guys have to say. Let's see. Mind Ross says if the Rams would be up against the Seahawks at the only if the Rams would be up against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, they would probably win the Super Bowl. It'd be that simple. They play a different brand of football when they play Seattle. It's just like they take their game to the next level for some reason. I can't explain it. It's like they just have something that they are definitely the kryptonite to the Seattle Seahawks, that's for sure. Andrew Kim says they have to play golf. Him sitting isn't doing anything. He can't be much worse than Keenum. I agree, but right now they're going to stick with Case Keenum. And I think there are, and I've heard reports that there are a bunch of coaches on that staff that would love to put Jared Goff in. And right now Jeff Fisher is overriding all of them. He has the veto power, and right now he's vetoing all of those other coaches who want to put Jared Goff in the game. He's telling them, no, we're sticking with Case Keenum. He gives us the best chance to win. And you could argue that, yes, in fact, Jared Goff could be worse because the one thing Case Keenum really isn't doing, and he did do it in week 1, but he didn't do it last week, is turn the football over. And Jared Goff is going to turn the football over because he's a rookie. That's what rookies do. So while you say it can't be much worse, and you're probably right, Case Keenum isn't going to turn it over a bunch. He may not do anything. He may not score any touchdowns, but he also isn't going to kill you by way of the turnover. Whereas with Jared Goff, you may have a better chance of scoring because he's going to do a lot more for you in that realm. But at the same time, he's also going to make some rookie mistakes and put you in some precarious situations with turnovers, which won't help this team at all. Enrique Valencia says, do you believe Wilson is going to regress this year? I'm not sold on that. I haven't seen anything that would encourage me to believe that. The ankle injury really limited him this game, and I thought he still performed well. Last game, I thought that Dolphins defense was playing outstanding football. I thought they were going to cut him loose this year. I thought after seeing the way he performed at the end of the season, all those 30-point performances, the way he was throwing the football, I thought they would just cut the man loose and let him be the general of this football team. But they went back to wanting to run the football a lot more. And I understand if that's their philosophy, that's what they want to do. But at some point, you got to let Russell Wilson take this team over, and they got to start pushing the football down the field. They got to figure out how to use Jimmy Graham, too. I mean, he's there, but a lot of these games, you're not even realizing and recognizing he's on the field. They got to figure out how to use Jimmy Graham. I feel like he's being wasted right now in Seattle. They got to figure out how to get him the football, get him going to help this offense put some points up on the scoreboard. They're struggling right now. All right, so that's going to do it for this breakdown. I thank you guys for joining me here on Lockdown Coverage. Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. Rams get it done 9-3, get their first win of the season. Seahawks drop to 1-1 after this loss. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Rams get it done 9-3. Don't know how, but they did in their season home opener. Big win for them in front of the home crowd. Their first time winning in Los Angeles since 1994. They get it done. Still haven't scored a touchdown this season. Still haven't scored a touchdown in Los Angeles since 1994. We'll see if they can change that in the coming weeks. It's going to do it for me here on Lockdown Coverage. I've got 2 more games to break down in week number 2 of the National Football League. Of course, Monday Night Football overtime coming your way after Monday Night Football. So I've got 3 games in total, but 2 more on the Lockdown Coverage show. So come back and join me for that. I will see you a little bit later on. Remember, we're changing the game 1 live feed at a time. See you next time.